Hey guys, welcome back. I have put Xcode into presentation view. I'm hoping that this helps out a lot with being able to see the code a little bit more clearly. I do like having this panel open with the help guide, but anyway, so we left off when we ran the mood tracker app. If we selected a mood here, it wasn't immediately updating it in mood history. So if I click save, went to mood history, it wasn't automatically updating. I'll show you how I fixed that. So now it's updating correctly. When we save a mood, we needed to also update the saved moods dictionary because each of these moods is coming from this fetch function, which pulls the mood from the saved mood dictionary. And here, when we saved it, we were updating it in saved data, in Swift data, but we weren't updating it in the dictionary. So we needed to do both. We needed to update it in Swift data, but also updating it immediately for the mood history view. So we needed to update it immediately in saved moods. And by doing that, we fixed that bug. Cool. So now that's out of the way, we can move on to the next thing we wanted to do. At this point, honestly, this is a really good MVP. I think this captures most of the things that you would want to do in a mood tracking app. The last thing I want to just call this MVP complete is to be able to tap some of these dates and be able to update the mood. For example, if I just access the app today, it's January 3rd, and I remembered that yesterday, oh, I forgot to track my mood and I actually remember how I felt, then I want to be able to tap this and to now log a mood for that date. And I don't want to be able to tap anything in the future. So this is our board here, and let's take a look at doing and seeing if we've completed the mood history stuff. So build a screen that shows recorded moods in a calendar or list, display dates, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, so this one is done. We've done the bare minimum for the mood history view. And now let's look at our next one, which is to be able to edit or delete moods. So we want to be able to select a mood and modify it. I don't know if we want to fully delete a mood, but maybe modify it is enough. To completely wipe it out is probably not necessary. So I'm just going to say edit moods for past dates, because we don't want to edit moods for future dates. And I'm going to remove the requirement to include a delete option. That's good for me. And I don't know if we're going to get to the stretch goals in this series. Let's talk about that in a sec. So I'm going to move this over to doing. This is what we're doing. And that's going to be the last thing in this playlist. And then for stretch goals, those will be future one-off videos. And let me know in the comments which stretch goal you guys are most interested in. Some additional stretch goals I had ideas of was, to add tags, to add notes, to do some notification stuff, to do some cloud sync stuff. Some other things would be app extensions. I really like doing app extensions like Siri shortcuts, app clips, maybe a watch app, those types of things. Let me know which ones you guys are most interested in and I'll tackle those in that way. And then one more thing is we have this blob, this just circle view, and I had an idea, maybe we can add some GIFs instead. So I have this folder with some mood images and they have GIFs like this. So instead of showing just a blob, it would update this circle into some of these emojis, just make it a little bit cuter, I guess. And then show you how to add that GIF support, which might be through installing a package, which we haven't done yet. It might be cool to show you how to install packages. Anyway, so that's future videos. Let's finish up this video. We're going to go back to Xcode and let's think about how we want to edit those dates. I guess we'll start off by looking at the mood selection view and seeing if there's anything we can clean up here. For example, there was this on tap gesture that we were using for debugging, and that can be removed now. And everything else looks pretty good, so that should be cleaned up. Go to mood history view. Let's see if there's anything we can clean up here. No, looks good. Okay, so let's start thinking about the sheet. Well, for the sheet should be put on top of the mood history view, basically. Like don't want to call the sheet in one of these like smaller views, because then the sheet might not take up the entire screen. So this is where we want to start adding that sheet. And how you add the sheet is with this modifier. And there's a couple of different things we can select from. We're going to probably want is to pass in an item to the sheet. It's possible we're going to want to modify either the date that was selected or the mood for that date that was selected. Let's go with using the sheet that takes in a binding identifiable object. So what this is saying is you're going to need to pass in some kind of binding, and the type of binding has to conform to the identifiable protocol. That means that it needs some kind of ID, and it needs to be a unique ID for each of these items. And then content is obviously like what the sheet looks like. Let's just stick that in for now and make some of these items. So what do we want to pass into the sheet? Well, I'm thinking I want to pass in some kind of object. I want to create a new object because I want to make sure that it conforms to identifiable. And I want it to contain the date that the user selected, as well as the mood that's currently selected, just to allow us the most flexibility in case we want to do anything with like the current selected mood, maybe put some kind of like icon or something to show the user like what's currently selected. So let's create that struct. So we'll say struct, what do we want to call it? I'm going to say like tapped date. Yeah, let's just do tapped date. And it's going to need that ID, like I said, and we'll just say UUID. And then the tapped date is going to need that date, that normalized date that I'll show you later, and then the mood, right? We're going to make a state property inside of mood history view. And this state property is just so that we can set this further below, because we're going to have to set that down here where the user actually taps the date, right? It's going to make a little bit more sense in a second. Okay, so we have this tap date, and then we're creating this state variable, and we're going to call this tapped date, and that's going to be an optional tap date that we're going to set. And so now we want to create a binding to this state variable, and the way that you create a binding is with this $. So $, tapped date, and then for this next parameter, when the last parameter in something is completion, we can drop the parameter name, and that's what I like to do. I like to drop the parameter name, just finish with the curly braces. It just looks cleaner to me, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And then what is this identifiable object that we're using here? Well, that's just the tap state. And then what do we want the sheet to look like? We're gonna create a new struct to tell us what we want the sheet to look like, so that we don't have a bunch of code just in here. And we'll call this mood picker view, mood picker sheet. Yeah, let's call it mood picker sheet. And then we'll think about how we want to pass in the state and stuff. But let's just make the sheet. We can make this in a new file, but because it's only going to be used here, at least for now, I'm fine with just sticking it at the bottom. And that's going to be a view, and we'll make some text that just says hi or something, just to make sure. We want to test like the most basic setup first before we get really into the details of what this mood picker sheet is going to look like. Let's get rid of this empty space, and then let's actually set this tap date so that the sheet will be presented. We'll go down here to where we make these days of the month views. And I'm going to set a tap gesture, not on the circle, but just a step up on the Z stack so that these guys aren't fighting for where you're tapping. Because it's possible, depending on like the order of these, like you could just tap the number and then the tap gesture doesn't make it to the circle, whatever. I just don't want to think about it too much. So I'm going to stick the on tap gesture up here and it should be fine. And then here we want to change that tapped date to something that we make, and the date is going to be the day of the month, and the mood is going to be the mood for day. So we have it here, mood for day. Sweet. Let's see what that does. So I'm going to stop this, I'm going to run it, and just see where we are here. Right, so we get this error because we're not able to access all the way back up to the mood history view. So we need to pass in a binding, and that looks like this. And that should make it so that we can access it. I'm going to build so that I can fix the errors. All right, so here, then we can fix that by passing in the binding in again, building, and then finally here I can pass in the tapped date. Cool. So that passes that all the way down so that we can actually set it down here. And now I'm going to go ahead and play. And then I'm going to tap a previous date and it says hi. Wow, great, cool. That's pretty great. So now let's think about what we want the mood picker sheet to look like. We can make this as simple as possible or try to make it kind of pretty. I'm just going to think about it for a sec. All right, so what we have here is the tapped date property. I created some kind of body. It's a VStack. It has a headline. And then I'm looping through each of these moods. And so it loops through each one of these. And it's grabbing the text and it's grabbing the color that's associated with each of those moods. So for each of these moods, create a button. And the reason why I'm creating a button is because when a user taps one of these moods, we want something to happen. We want to save it. We want to pass it back. Something needs to happen, right? And what that button is going to look like is an H-stack. So they're side by side. It's going to be a circle, and it's going to say what that circle is, what that circle color's mood is associated with. Cool. I think that's everything. Let's go ahead and run this and see what this looks like. Okay, I need to pass in the date, the tapped date. So go ahead and do that. Okay, and now we can run. Now if I go to mood history view, if I tap a date, this is what the sheet now looks like. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. I could probably like align these things leading. It would look even better. Yeah, okay, let's do that. Let's at least like align it leading so that they all kind of line up at least. And the way that we're going to do that is all this is in a VStack. We're just going to align it on the leading edge. So alignment and then dot leading, and that should do the trick. Let's see. Yeah, all right, that already looks a little bit better. And now I can tap these. And so what do we want to do when we tap these? We want to save something. So instead of having the save, like I don't want to pass in the view model, I don't want to pass all this stuff in. I'm just going to have like a callback to say on save. I'm going to let whoever's calling this picker sheet decide what they want to do when a user taps one of these. And so on save, we're going to have to pass in the mood that was selected. So we're going to pass in this mood to this on save function that we're going to create. And then we need to dismiss the sheet. So we're going to have some kind of dismiss action. Let's make those functions appear. And then that could be the case too. But that's probably what eventually is going to happen. But I just want the caller to make this choice. So I'm going to have a let dismiss here too. Okay, so when they tap the button, we're going to save the mood and then dismiss the sheet. Yeah, okay, this looks good. And then the user can dismiss the sheet themselves by just pulling down the sheet, and it just dismisses it, and it's fine. Cool. So we're going to build this. It's going to create some errors for us, and then we're going to define these functions. So on save, we have a mood in do something with the mood. And then we also have this new dismiss, and we want to do something with, I do want to put this parameter name back in because I don't think that it's intuitive that this is going to be dismiss code. So I do want that there just for clarity. So I'm putting that back. And then on dismiss, we're probably just going to do what the auto completion said to do, which is it's just to nil out this tapped date. So tapped date is nil, and that should do it. So what do we want to do with this move? Well, I think we can just call the function that we've called before to save the date. Yeah, I think that's what we want to do here. So if we call the view model and then save date, well, save mood for the date, and then we have this new selected mood, and then we have the date from this tapped date thing, and that should do it. The other thing we're probably going to want is to still nil out the tapped date. So we want to save the mood and then nil out the tapped date again so we can reset this. Cool. Let's see if this works. It is optional. Oh, I see. We probably need self dot. Okay, there we go. And the reason we need self dot is because I named this tap date, so the compiler was confused and thought I meant this guy, but I actually meant this guy. So self dot is referring to this guy, and that's why that worked. All right, go back here, select 2. Let's save neutral for 2. And hey, awesome. Okay, cool. We can now select previous dates and modify them. We're getting so close. All right. The next thing is I don't want to allow the user to select future dates. I think it's silly. So how are we going to prevent the user from selecting future dates? I think we're going to have to do that when a user, when the tap gesture here. Basically, we don't want to set the tapped date as anything if the tapped date is in the future. So we want to ask this question, is day of month in the future? Else do this tap date thing, right? Like we want to just return and do nothing if the day of the month is in the future. If you wanted a super slick UI, if you wanted this to be like production worthy, you might actually want to pop some kind of like message somehow, an alert maybe, a toast, something that tells the user like, hey, you can't modify dates in the future, so that it doesn't seem like it's a bug on their part. Like they might want to select a future date and not understand why nothing is happening. They might think it's a bug. So to tell them, hey, it's not a bug, we just don't want to allow you to mess with stuff in the future, you might want to tell them that. Right, so this is what that would look like. We are grabbing today's date and we're grabbing the tap date, which is just the day of the month. And then we're just looking at whether the tap date is less than or equal to today's date. And if so, then set the tap date. We actually don't need this let here. We can just use this day of the month instead. So yeah, if the day of the month is less than today's date, then we would allow them to tap and actually do something with that tap. All right, let's run it. Get rid of this guy. Use day of the month down here as well. Run. All right, so let's give that a try now. I'm going to save very pleasant, go back to mood history. And then if I click 4, 5, 6, any of these future dates, nothing's happening. But if I click 2, the mood pops up. If I click 1, something pops up. If I click very unpleasant, then it'll set it. So that's literally everything I wanted to do for this MVP series. I hope you enjoyed watching me code, and I hope you stick around for my future videos. Again, let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you guys next time.